Okay, class, so we're going to start recording today's video, which is part 3. We're going to talk about transformations from your handout. Okay, so you should have your foldable. You should already have the outside completed. If you haven't, then you need to watch the video on... Okay, so I was saying, if you guys haven't recorded, if you have not completed the first part and the insights and the 2 problems, and you need to watch the video. Okay, so we're going to start with transformations. The first thing is just filling in the basic information. Okay, if you have a times the square root of bx minus h plus k, a changes the what? Do you guys know? Yes, a changes the orientation and the shape. So let's see if orientation and the shape of the graph. So in other words, it's going to tell you, is it facing up, down, left, or right? I'm going to zoom in on this big time so that you guys can see it. Okay, if a is less than 0, if a is less than 0, the graph is reflected over the x-axis. So if a is negative, then that means it's going to be reflected over the x-axis. Okay, if the absolute value of a is greater than 1, the graph is stretched vertically. So anytime a is a 2 or a 3 or a 5 or a 10, okay, it's going to be stretched vertically. If a is between 0 and 1, if a is a decimal or a fraction, then the graph is compressed vertically. And it kind of cut off the word is. Okay? We're going to finish that. Let's go ahead and go up a little bit. B changes orientation and shape of graph. Okay, if b is less than 0, the graph is reflected over the x-axis. I'm sorry, over the y-axis. Can you enter? If b is greater than 1, then the graph is stretched. If b is between 0 and 1, in other words, if it's a fraction, the graph is compressed. Make sure you watch the video, okay? Okay, if h, the value h, so we've already gone over a. We know that a, if a is negative, it reflects it over the x-axis. If b is negative, then it's reflected over the y-axis. And then depending if b or a are bigger than 1, then it's either going to stretch it or it's going to compress it if it's a fraction. Okay, the letter h moves the graph left or right. So if h is greater than 0, in other words positive, what direction do you think the graph moves? Maybe I should say opposite instead of positive. So if h is greater than 0, if h is positive, and it's always the opposite of what you think, the graph is going to move to the left or to the right? It's going to move to the left. Good. It's going to move to the left h units. If the absolute value of h is less than 0, it's going to still be the opposite. You're going to move to the right. Okay, k moves the graph up or down. If k is greater than 0, If k is positive, then the graph moves up k units. Okay, if the absolute value of k is less than 0, so if it's a smaller number, I guess the graph moves down k units. Okay, and if k is less than 0, that means k is negative, and it's going to move the graph down. Okay, let's go to example 4 and put into practice what we just learned. If you have y is equal to the square root of x minus 2 plus 5, the shape is it the same or different as the square root of x? The shape is going to be the same. The reason being is because a is actually equal to 1. Since a is equal to 1, then that means nothing has changed. Okay? The orientation is what? The same or different as the square root of x? It's actually going to be the same. Orientation would be like, is it pointing to the right? Is it pointing to the left? Did it flip over the x or y axis? Okay? B is equal to 1. So as long as a and b are the same, then they're going to have the same shape and the same orientation as the parent function. The vertex in this case is what? Yeah, the vertex is going to be the opposite of what we see here. So it's going to be positive 2 and a positive 5. The vertex has moved from 0, 0 on the square root of x. H is going to be positive 2 and k is equal to 5. Since h is it h greater than 0 or less than 0? Greater, good. Since h is positive, the graph moves, remember h moves either to the left or to the right. So what do? If h is greater than 0, you guys can't see that. If h is greater than 0, then it's going to move to the left. So the graph moves left. How many units? 2 units. Good. Okay, since k is greater than 0 or less than 0? Greater. Since k is greater than 0, then we're going to move up or down? Up. Good. We're going to move up 5 units. Okay, and we're getting this information from the little tab here. Okay, since k is greater than 0, it's positive, the graph moves up. Okay, very good. Do you guys have any questions on that? Is it H? Okay, number 5. Okay, number 5, we're going to go ahead and write down what A, B, H, and K stand for. Okay, what is the value of A? -2. Okay, it's that number here in the front. We have a square root of bx plus h minus k. So what is the value of b? 1. H looks like a 3, but it's inside the radical, so it's going to be the opposite, -3, and then k is -1. Since a is less than 0, the graph is, remember, if a is less than 0, the graph is reflected over the x-axis. Okay. And since a is greater than 0, or a is greater than 1, the graph is also stretched vertically. Since h is greater than or less than 0? H is less than 0. The graph moves which direction? Moves to the right, the opposite of what you expect. Moves to the right 3 units. Ah, crap. It moves to the left.
It's to the left because it's opposite.
It's the opposite of what we expect. So since H, yeah, I got that wrong. Moves to the left 3 units. Okay, and since K is less than 0, the graph is what? The graph moves down 1 unit. Okay, that was a little tricky, okay? I hate when it's not the same. All right, let's go to the last example, example 6. A is equal to what?
1/2.
1/2. Since we know that A is less than 1, then the graph is what? Stretched or compressed? It's compressed. It's a fraction, right? Since A is between 0 and 1. Since the absolute value of B, what's B?
-2.
-2. And the absolute value of that is 2. Is 2 greater than 0 or less than 0? It's greater. So then that means it's going to be it's going to be stretched horizontally, and since B is less than 0, the graph is what? Yeah, reflected over the y-axis. And I'm just looking at this little flap over here and looking at the properties. Okay, since K is, what is the value of H, first of all? Is there a value of H?
No.
Nope, so it's going to be 0. And is there a value of K?
Yes.
It's 3. So since K is greater than 0, we're going to shift how many? Up 3 units. Okay, hopefully you guys understood it. I know it was a little bit confusing. It was even confusing for me. I hate B. It makes my life miserable. Okay, so hopefully it won't make your life too miserable as long as you follow this little side. Okay, so tomorrow for when you come in, what I'm going to check is that you finish the notes on transformations and the 3 examples. Thank you.